Random J Productions presents the Palm Summer League. Today, we're here at the Progressive Speedway in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the running of the Marathon Oil Capital Showdown. On this hot summer afternoon, 40-star drivers already lined up on pit road for potentially our final ever Super Speedway race on this channel. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Josh, your commentator for today's race. There certainly has a lot of stakes for a lot of drivers. Cutting right into the chase is the driver with potentially the most to lose, yet also the most to gain. Point leader, Matthew Hill. Across this channel, Hill has won 2 out of the 4 Super Speedway races we've had so far this year. Could the driver that currently controls their own destiny make it 3 for 5 for Super Speedway races this year? Speaking of 3, that's the number of points Matthew Hill has over the driver who's second in points, the 53 of Random J. With this being Random's second to last race ever as an NR driver, this is also his last opportunity to win an NR driver championship, something that Random has been striving for years. Definitely expect Random to be an aggressive driver throughout the course of this entire race. Then we come to the driver who's won a Palm Summer League championship before, that of course being the 2023 champion of Brendan Beal, hot off his win at a last race at Vermont. Beal has been one of the most consistent drivers all summer, finishing in the top 10 in all but one race this summer, so definitely keep an eye out for driver 37 here today. And finally, there's the rookie, Brian Rodriguez. The driver of the 18 came into the last race as the point leader, but after a disappointing 26th place finish, Rodriguez fell all the way down to 4th in points, now 9 points back from the point leader. This is certainly a race that Rodriguez needs to finish well to still have a realistic shot of winning the championship. In addition to your top 4 in points, all being within 9 points of the leader, nearly every driver 5th on down in points are all still technically in the hunt for the title, but that's of course provided if they are within 48 points of the leader after today's race, which is the most you can score during a Palm Summer League race. Now before all these scenarios get unfolded, let's first take a look at our starting lineup for today's race that could be one for the ages. So on the pole is the 28 of Riley Spurly, and Exum the 10 of Campbell Marsh. Row 2, the 62 of Patrick Miller, and Exum once again up in the first 2 rows, the 6 of Bradley Ream. Row 3, the 63 of Alexander Rowe, and veteran Owen Miles in the 96. Row 4, Colin Croppley in the 15, and the 41 of Philip Torres. Row 5, the 17 of Joe T, and the 81 of Al Bunch. Row 6, the defending series champion Jordan Flores, who's won 2 Super Speedway races before in the PSL, and Exum the 84 of Jaxon Bergem. Row 7, we got Firecracker Formula winner and current points leader Matthew Hill in the 90, and Exum second in points, the 53 of Random J. We have 2 NS Racing drivers in row number 8, starting with the 97 of Nathan Stapleton, the team owner, and next to him 5th in points, Matthew Hubert in the 98. Row 9, the 75 of Jack Haas, and next to him the 46 of Johnny Hernandez. Row 10, former summer kickoff winner Jose Angel Gutierrez, and next to him 2-time channel champion Ryan Wilson in the 48. Row 11, the 9 of Lipsy, and next to him fellow channel veteran and former A-Star champion Keyshawn Richardson in the 24. Row 12, the 08 of Alex Mullen, and next to him the 01 of Daniel Voiles. Row 13, the 06 of Madison Chase, and 4th in points, Brian Rodriguez in the 18. Row 14, Alex Sanfratoli in the 99, and Kyle Sushine in the 19. Row 15, the 59 of Caleb Rose, and next to him the 88 of Anthony Hernandez, who comes in this race just outside the top 10 in the points. Row 2, former Super Speedway winners in row 16, the 11 of Jordan Stout, and the 03 of Matthew Burnett. Row 17, Firecracker runner-up Jason Albert in the 4, and former Daytona Showdown winner Roberto Crown in the 21. Row 18, reigning summer kickoff winner from earlier this year, Bibi Ruiz in the 57, and the 49 of Dylan Matthews. Row 19, the 7 of Haley Anderson, who won Minnesota a couple months ago, and Exxon former Firecracker winner Nick Sand the 20. And finally, in row number 20, is a winner from Vermont, as well as 2023 PSL champion Brendan Beal, who came in this race third in the point standings. And next to him is NR veteran, the 79 of Benny Watson. Taking a look at the track and flare for today's race, we're going to go 35 laps on this roughly 2.5 mile long pure oval. And as you can see with the track illustration, the start-finish line very similar to both Armour Digital and Talladega. The start-finish line is placed just before the entrance of turns 1 and 2. And speaking of the turns, that's the biggest selling point of the super speedway. They are progressively banked 20 to 32.5 degrees. No, the progressive naming of this track isn't just a sponsorship from the insurance company, but is an actual unique feature of this racetrack. So that's definitely going to be a huge factor throughout today's race. In addition, as well as for the weather here today in Tulsa, it's a very, very warm 98 degrees Fahrenheit, likely one of not the hottest races on record here in this channel, with 10 mile per hour towards the south. And as you also, it's very easy to go 3 to 4 wide, partly due thanks to those progressive banks. And it's also likely the last super speedway points race on this channel. And now, without further ado, it is time for the most famous words in motorsports here in Progressive.
Say it with me! Drivers, start your engines!
Now, I mentioned during the monologue that nearly every driver 5th on down in the points are still technically eligible for the championship, but of course talk to one of them who knows a thing or two about winning a summer championship on the channel. Hey, Anthony Hernandez, Josh up in the booth, got a copy?
Yes, sir, I got a copy.
Hey man, you're coming off a much needed race at Vermont. Bumped you up to 11th in points, still a fighting shot to contend for this championship, but this is a brand new super speedway of progressive banks. What's your mentality going into today's race?
Well, it's gonna mostly be minimizing the mistakes, hoping we can stay up front, hopefully we can win this thing, because I looked at the standings, we're really far behind, but hopefully everything goes right, and hopefully I can have a shot. And if I don't have a shot, I know my dad has a better shot than me, so hopefully either one of us can bring it home. But yeah, got a good finish in the last race. Obviously, definitely needed that after getting banged around a few times at Daytona, but it happens. And I'm looking forward to finishing this race and finishing out the season strong.
All right, man, good luck. Get out there, stay safe, and thank you for all the years you've been on this channel racing for us.
But let's win it one more time.
Now, as mentioned several times throughout this broadcast, this race could be one for the ages. So many unknowns with the point standings, so many drivers have their seasons on the line here today, and so many unknowns with the progressive banks of this new super speedway. But as the pace truck continues down pit road, this sold-out crowd is all on their feet as the oil capital Showdown's under green. Coming to complete the first lap here in the Capital Showdown, looks like Patrick Miller barely beats Alexander Rowe back to the line, as those two remain side by side through these progressive corners of turns 1 and 2. And as you can see, it looks like most of these drivers in this top dozen or so are all 2 by 2. Everyone else behind them is 3 wide, or in some cases 4 wide already throughout this pack as you come off turn number 2. There you see point leader Matthew Hill looking to the outside of absolute help whatsoever for Gutierrez and Johnny Hernandez move down before Hill tries to move back up to the middle, as now there's Lipsy looking to the inside of Gutierrez, making it 4 wide with Random J second in points way up high on the racetrack. This angle we said from Matthew Hubert, as well as he nearly smacked the wall that time by into turn number 3. Johnny Hernandez also losing ground, was nearly 5 wide already. And I'd imagine that these drivers, especially the ones that are double-digit points back from your point leaders, will be very, very aggressive here in today's race, as this is really the last chance for those drivers to make up any sort of significant ground over the rest of your championship leaders, as you of course head into the championship race and the grand finale at Atlanta Motor Speedway on Labor Day weekend. And even though I mentioned that it's pretty easy during the pre-race to go 3 to 4 wide at this racetrack, you of course still have to be very, very careful of going 3 to 4 wide here, as one small mistake could cause a massive wreck and thus massive implications in the championship point standings. As you see now, Jaxon Bergem into turns 3 and 4 going 3 wide on defending champion Floors, and Patrick Miller, who's now on the outside. Alexander also up towards the middle as he's going to move up in front of the 62. Now the two lead drivers being Colin Cropley and Joe T. Alexander Vitali also moving up nicely, as well as 88 of Anthony Hernandez. As up front, we're now 3 wide for the lead, with Cropley, Joe T, and Bergem as now come back to the line to complete lap number 3. Looks like Cropley barely beat those other two drivers back to the line. And you can just see from the hood of Gutierrez's car just how close he and the other drivers are from one another when they're 3 to 4 wide. And once again, I just can't stress enough how close these drivers are from one another in this large pack, despite this being only 4 laps in this 35-lap race. And you can see up front, Jaxon Bergem's now assuming the win of Owen Miles on the inside, fast approaching the fault from point leader Matthew Hill, as he's now 3 wide, with Jordan Forbes and Cropley. As for 4 wide, I think contact between Madison, Chase, and Lipsy there looks like they're able to mostly back off from one another, as we now see more and more drivers going 4 wide through turns 3 and 4, even though, again, we're just on lap number 4 of 35 laps in this rather decently long Super Speedway race. And like I said earlier in the pre-race, because these progressively bent corners, it is very easy to go 3 to 4 wide at this racetrack. Already seeing that now, as here's Bergem and Miles side by side for the lead, with Matthew Hill still behind Miles, and Joe T in the 17 behind Bergem. Meanwhile, a little further back, drivers going 5 wide. That's Dylan Matthews in the 49 force initial. She's running that yellow line off turn number 2, with Rod Wilson and Baby Rose near making contact that time by. And looks like continuing down the back straightaway, Alex Mullen's going to back off in that 5 wide madness. At least for now, Wilson and Ruiz near making contact again into turns 3 and 4 that time by. Meanwhile, the turns 3 and 4, your top 6 are 3 by 2, with Owen Miles having the advantage over Bergem this time by a fault from Matthew Hill still, as they come back towards the front straightaway once again. And it looks like come back to start finish on the complete lap number 5. I think Bergem barely beats Miles back to the line somehow by literal inches. Everyone's behind the leader, all 4 deep behind. And yeah, it looks like according to the scoring, Bergem beat Miles back to the line by literal inches, but off turn number 2, Owen Miles will have the advantage again over Jaxon Bergem, before Matthew Hill forces Miles to the outside, as those two are not going to be side by side down the back straight away. There's Keith Charger trying to start a 4th on the inside. Jason Albert trying to decide where he wants to go, as both Hill and Miles remain side by side for the lead to turns 3 and 4, as those two drivers are nearly dead even. Meanwhile, just behind your leaders, Anthony Hernandez is 3 wide in the middle, with both Forbes and Albert, as all this contact between Miller and Rowe going around off of 4. And that's his teammate Random J also going for a spin in the 53. That's also to Riley Spurly also going for a spin. Daniel Voiles also caught up in this, as the caution will come out for the first time today in Progressive. So a number of big name drivers involved, but probably the biggest name involved is second in points Random J in the 53, who was probably running towards the back to intentionally avoid a situation like this, but fortunately for Random, looks like there's not any too much, like at least cosmetically, not too much damage to that 53 car, so there's a pretty decent chance he could continue the rest of the way. And in fact, pretty much all these drivers involved have very little, if any, cosmetic damage, so there's a pretty decent chance that these drivers could get back up front, with probably the exception of the 10 of Campbell Marsh, has heavy ruin damage to his car. But other than that, I think everyone else that was involved in this, including Random J and Riley Spurly, 2 drivers up in the points, could probably just go down pit road, double check, make sure everything's okay, and get back out there, possibly contend for this win still. And speaking of pit road, pretty much everyone's coming on pit road, led by a race leader and current points leader Matthew Hill in the 90, followed by Owen Miles in the 96, Alex Vitali in the 99, and the 84 of Jaxon Bergem. Meanwhile, as for the driver in 5th, that being Caleb Rose, here so far appears to be the only driver staying out under this caution flag, so definitely a different strategy for the relevant driver, who is of course one of the many drivers that came into today's race basically in a must-win situation if they want to even contend for this championship, as Rose came in this race 18th in points, I should say, behind by 43, almost a full race worth of points here in the Palm Summer League. Now, even though I didn't explicitly mention a fuel and tire window range during the pre-race, it's usually somewhere in the mid-20s. That's what it was for both Armory Digital and Daytona, our first 2 super speedways earlier this summer. But of course, these type of races being unpredictable and as chaotic as they are, they can easily change, especially if we get so many cautions to the point where a Gunnar checker finish happens and could cause some drivers to save some fuel. And speaking of fuel, it seems to be the call everyone's going with here. Matthew Hill getting gas only as he's already off and away. But here's your race off pit road. Looks like Owen Miles will beat Matthew Hill back to the line. Miles first, Hill is second, Sam Vitale third, Bergem fourth, and Jason Albert rounds off the rest of the top 5. And like I said already a little bit earlier, the only driver to stay out is the 59 of Caleb Rose, so he'll be a leader when we go back green with Miles second and Hill running off the rest of the top 3. But anyways, we'll take a look at the instant replay to see what caused the first caution here in the Oil Capital Showdown. So all just started to turns 3 and 4. The 2 drivers still watching the screen are the 2 drivers pretty much almost right up against the wall. That being the 62 of Patrick Miller and the 63 of Alexander Rowe. So Rowe and Miller both back off on the wall, still 4 wide with the drivers below them. But I was like, oh, Johnny Hernandez was the one who forced random into both Rowe and Miller, sending both cars into the wall with Miller going for a spin, Random also going for a spin. Oh, Campbell Marsh got heavy wear and damage to his car, so I take back what I said earlier for all those drivers potentially being mostly okay from this. Taking this up above. So it looks like off of 4, coming back onto the front stretch. Johnny essentially ran Random out of room, sent him right into his teammate of Rowe and Patrick Miller. See Campbell Marsh on the brakes trying to avoid, but then Jordan Stout hits him there towards his left rear, causing that huge damage to his car, with the other drivers involved not going for a spin on the front stretch apron. Checking this up again in slow motion. So again, you see Johnny essentially running Random out of room, sending right into his teammate of Alexander Rowe and Patrick Miller, with the 62 car going into the wall first, Rowe going around, with Random coming up on Miller once again, sending the 53 around. And again, you see Campbell Marsh right on the brakes, as well as Riley Spurly trying to avoid those 3 cars into the wall. And it looks like Marsh initially had it missed. I mean, he ducked down to the inside, missing both Random and Rowe. Brendan Beal also going down the inside, but then, hits Rowe there on his left front with Jordan Stout hitting him right square in the rear, which caused all that damage for the 10 car. Where both Riley Spurly and Daniel Voiles didn't really get any serious. I don't think they make any contact with anyone. Just went for a spin on the front stretch apron. Now let's go on board with Random J to see his point of view of this. So again, Johnny just essentially ran Random out of room, sending right into his teammate and Patrick Miller as well. Random going for a spin, but Random never really made any additional contact with anybody else. So Random, as far as I know, Random's car is all in one piece and looks like he's able to continue the rest of this race, potentially on pace with the rest of the leaders before nearly missing Campbell Marsh there. Wow. Let's go on board with Riley Spurly. So this happened right in front of him, was immediately on the brakes as soon as he saw the smoke, but then, he hits the wall, comes down right in front of Daniel Voiles, sent both cars spinning. But thankfully for both Spurly and Voiles, none of them made contact with the inside wall there. So probably just like Random, they could continue the rest of this race without any sort of major implications or damage their overall race pace. And finally, on board with Brendan Beal. So just like Spurly, just happened practically right in front of him, but Beal was already on the inside anyway and just ducked down to the apron and very easily avoided that. Great miss there for the driver who came in this race, started in the point standings. But anyways, we're already under caution here in Progressive for the Oil Capital Showdown. We'll be right back with you guys after this. Welcome back to the Palm Summer League semifinale here from Progressive Speedway in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're about to come back green after a multi-car incident off turn number 4 that involved several notable drivers, including second in points Random J, sixth in points in pole sitter Riley Spurly, Campbell Marsh probably got the worst out of any driver involved in that, as well as Alexander Rowe, Patrick Miller, and Daniel Voiles. However, despite all those drivers being involved in that, they will continue the rest of this race, but of course for Marsh, it will be a slow car throughout the rest of the day's race. Anyways, as for your leaders, every driver came down pit road with the exception of Caleb Rose, as he'll be scored as your leader, followed by Owen Miles in the 96, point leader Matthew Hill, Alexander Vitale, and Jaxon Bergem running off the rest of the top 5. But as this field continues to slowly approach the start-finish line, I think now is a good time for another edition of Palm Summer League Crank It Up, this time coming to this restart. It is lap number 14 of 35 here in Progressive Speedway. We're still 3 to 4 wide throughout the entire pack. That time by Brad Rimo's the leader, but Kyler Sushai off turn number 2. With Hope and Matt Burnett will now assume the lead. Now we'll check down the back. Straightaway Sushai is going to move to the middle in front of Bibi Ruiz, as Matt Burnett is going to lose some ground on the middle inside the lane, with Colin Crawford now fast approaching on the furthermost inside the lane. To return his 3 and 4 this time by to make it 4 wide for third. And all that's happening, our Sushai and Reem are still side by side for the lead, with Sushai maintaining his advantage over the 6 car. And that's going to remain the case off for turn number 4 and coming back to this long front straightaway. Reem and Sushai still side by side. Cropway also making 3 wide. Here's Anderson now making a 4 wide for the lead, coming to lap number 15. And we'll check that time by. Brad was once again able to maintain his lead, but Haley Anderson is now fast approaching, hoping to fellow dodge of Al Bunch at 81 with Nick Sand at 20. And here's Random J also making his way back up towards the front after being involved in that wreck. And I mentioned after that first caution that there was a pretty good chance that those drivers that were involved in that, with the exception of Campbell Marsh, could still continue the rest of this race on pace. And we're already seeing that Random J back up front, riding contention to win this race like nothing ever happened. While the other drivers that were involved in that, like Jordan Stout, Riley Spurly, Daniel Voiles, and Alexander Rowe, even though those drivers are currently towards the back of this pack right now, the important thing is that they're even in this pack to begin with, as those drivers still very much have a shot to win this race. And just like a last green flag cycle, you can see drivers still 4 deep behind your top half dozen, with the 2 middle lines seemingly struggling to give each other any sort of room here, as you see multiple drivers there near making contact off turn number 2. And to be honest, like, if you just look at a still picture or still frame of this racing right now, you'd probably think it's one of the last few laps, but if anything, but in all actuality, we're not even halfway done with this race yet. But for now, everything remains calm as you continue to do these progressive corners of turns 3 and 4, with Anderson and Reem still side by side for the lead, with Random J trying to peek his nose to the inside of Anderson off of 4 this time by, with Patrick Miller doing the same to Max Burnett as he's 3 wide for 3 wide for 5th, I should say, behind your top 4. And you can see Miller is going to move way down to the inside lane, almost right up against the yellow line, down this straightaway, trying to get that big run into turns 1 and 2. But unfortunately, that wasn't really able to work out for the 62 as Matt Burnett comes down the block Miller, with Miller still being almost 4 wide that time by. And up the track goes Anthony Hernandez in the 88 car into turn number 2. Here's that Kyle Cropper is the one that forced him up high, as Hernandez moves a lot of ground on the outside lane off for turn number 2 and continuing down the back as he's nearly 5 wide that time by. And of course, Anthony is desperate for another good run like he had at Vermont during the last race, as he came to this race just outside the top 10 in points in 11th as we're 4 wide into turns 3 and 4. Here's Patrick Miller forcing those drivers of Burnett, Random, and especially Nixon up high in the racetrack. Anderson still side by side of Reem for the lead. And we'll check off of 4. Both Reem and Anderson move up the racetrack right in front of both Random and Burnett respectively, as they remain side by side for the lead, with NOS behind them all 4 wide coming to lap number 18. This is honestly insane to see all these drivers 4 wide, barely giving each other any sort of edge, all desperate to make up ground in this very, very crucial race that could make or break some of these drivers' championship hopes, with Jordan Stout and Patrick Miller nearly making contact there. That was a really close call between those 2 drivers. I'm surprised he even managed to save it, but Reem and Anderson once again side by side through turns 3 and 4, with David Stapleton all over the back bumper of Anderson, but Alex Bonos now in this picture in the 08. And Random J up the track into turn number 4. He's moved a lot of ground just like Nick said earlier, and probably a lot of positions and points as things currently stand. But as that happens in the straightaway, Staple is going to force Brado to the outside, as he and Alex Bowen going to get a huge run down this front straightaway coming to lap number 19, as Staples going to be now side by side of Anderson for the lead. And you can see, again, Random still stuck on that outside lane, as he and Al Bunch, I think, nearly or maybe even did smack the wall that side by, as we come off turn number 2 with Anderson and Staples still side by side. Which I continue down this long back straightaway into turns 3 and 4 once again, which as of now Staple has the advantage over Anderson, but Anderson gets a strong run in that middle outside line, as he's had pretty much all throughout this entire green flag run so far. Bradley Reem now losing ground on the outside. On board of Matt Burnett off turn number 4, he gets a strong run in the middle, right in front of the fellow Chevy of Alex Bowen. He's likely going to help him out here to maybe possibly take the lead away from Staple, who leads about number 20 this time by. Now, Staple, of course, has quite a bit of history here at these super speedways on this channel, in addition to, of course, losing out to Jordan Stout in the iconic Armored Digital race 3 years ago by just 2/1000ths of a second. He also has built himself up as a rather aggressive super speedway racer, especially at Daytona for the Firecracker 400, which is, of course, another super speedway on this channel. But now, down the backstretch into turns 3 and 4, he's going to move to the outside in front of Anderson, with Alex Mullen now to his inside, trying to challenge Staple for the lead, where Staple comes down the block, or briefly blocked Mullen that time by those two, now going to be side by side for the lead. I know Nixon once again way behind the racetrack, nearly smacked it all into turn number 4 that time by, as Mullen and Staple remain side by side for the lead. As all this contact, that's Gutierrez and Albert into the wall for other drivers going for a spin. Matthew Hill's involved, the point leader, Anthony Hernandez, and others involved as the caution's back out here in Progressive. Oh my goodness, already another wreck, and another one that involves major drivers up in the points, including Matthew Hill, the point leader going into today's race, and once again, the 53 of Random J. It looks like this time around, Random won't be so fortunate, as he has significantly worse damage than what he had last time, as that hood's buckled up in the 53. On the contrast, Matthew Hill, his point rival, his car is rather clean, but still, regardless, this caution alone may have the potential to shake up this entire Palm Summer League Championship, as this presents a huge opportunity to the drivers who came this race behind in points, including 3rd in points, Brendan Beal, 4th in points, Brian Rodriguez, and 5th in points, Matthew Hubert. Anyways, we of course got to take a look at the instant replay to see what caused this championship-altering caution. So very similar to our first wreck earlier in this race back in lap number 6, this started in turns 3 and 4, with really the 3 drivers to watch out on your screen, being the 75 of Jack Cost, the 94 of Gutierrez, and the 4 of Albert, as they're all practically 5 wide, with Random to their outside and Miles to their inside. So you see Jack Cost trying to back off from Gutierrez, but instead, the two made some contact in the 4 that time by, and then here comes Jason Albert coming down on Gutierrez. The 3 drivers essentially ran each other out of room, both going to the wall, collecting Random J, Hernandez, with Matthew Hill and Al Bunch going for a spin down the apron. With Hill, I think, just touched that inside wall just barely. Didn't make too much contact with it, but still, he definitely made contact with it nevertheless. Taking into slow motion. So again, Haas, Gutierrez, and Albert essentially ran themselves out of the room, with Albert first getting into Al Bunch a little bit, and then Albert coming back down on Gutierrez's right door, basically door slamming him right there. And then you see both Gutierrez and Albert go back up the track into the wall right in front of Random J, who had practically nowhere to go, with Random then coming down on Hernandez, who comes down on Matthew Hill as a result. With pretty much all those drivers there going for a spin down the apron, with Matthew Hubert and Bibi Ruiz, 2 other drivers up in the points, just barely avoiding. Looks like Lipsy also did get some damage there. Looked like he initially had it avoided, but did get some damage at the end alongside Kyle Sestri. Let's go on board for your point leader to see his point of view here. Yeah, I didn't really have anywhere to go once Hernandez came down. He didn't even know Hernandez was behind him. Of course, Hernandez was the one that turned Matthew Hill around and sent him spinning down the apron. Now on board with Jose Angel Gutierrez. So again, like I said, Jack Haas, Gutierrez, and Albert just ran each other out of the room, and Gutierrez was probably the worst. It was probably the worst situation out of those 3 drivers, as he was sandwiched by both Albert and Haas there. On board again of Random J. So you see, Random was like almost right up against the wall in the 53, almost following Nick's stance line seemingly. But then here's the contact in front of him. Barely any time to react for Random there. With pretty decent hood damage to his car, it's probably going to take him out of contention for the rest of this race, even though he'll probably continue the rest of this race to salvage as many points as he possibly can. But anyways, we're under caution again here at Progressive for another wreck off turn number 4. We'll be right back with you guys after this. Welcome back again to the Progressive Speedway for the Palm Summer League semi-finale. We're about to go back green after yet another wreck off turn number 4 involving several drivers up in the points, including Jason Albert in the 4, the 88 of Anthony Hernandez, and of course, most notably, both first and second in points, Matthew Hill and Random J, with Random getting significantly worse damage than he did earlier back in lap number 6 when he was also involved in that caution. And that damage Random sustained from this most recent caution will likely take him out of race winning contention for the rest of today's race. But anyways, eyes for your top 3. The 97 of Nathan Stapleton is your leader, followed by the 08 of Alex Mullen, and the 7 of Haley Anderson. And this time by receipt the green flag. Only 11 laps to go here at Progressive. I already see Brad Bergem wasting absolutely no time to turns 1 and 2, going 3 wide on both Max Burnett and Daniel Voiles, as it of course takes a few laps or so for these drivers to go back up the race pace after these restarts in these super speedways. You see drivers already bunching back up down the back straightaway. Brad Bergem still 3 wide, with Keith Harrison Nixon also pulling down to the racetrack. It was nearly 4 wide again. Patrick Miller briefly went up to the outside of the racetrack before really come back down on Daniel Voiles. Looks like off of 4, Stable is going to maintain his lead over both Anderson and Mullen. Also not going to be side by side down this. Oh, we got another wreck. That's Madison Chase around. Jackson Bergem around alongside Jack Haas. And once again, the caution is back out. Oh, Johnny Hernandez and Jack Haas got into each other that time by. But as I was just saying, that did not take long at all for the caution to come immediately back out. But once again, another wreck off turn number 4. That part of the racetrack has proven to be absolutely treacherous throughout the course in this entire race. And it appears that this time around, at least from first glance, that this time around none of your major point leaders are involved in this one. But of course, once again, we have to take a look at the instant replay. See what caused not only our 3rd caution of this race, but also our 2nd caution in just the last 7 laps. Now, just looking at this still image, and before I even say anything, you can probably take a guess where this all happened. But I'll say it anyway. Once again, for the 3rd time today, this started off turn number 4 with drivers 4 wide, this time being Madison Chase in the 06 and the 48 of Ryan Wilson. So just like before, Madison runs Ryan out of the room, sends both of them into the wall. Right in front of Brendan Beal in the 37. He may have some damage after that as well. While both Jackson Bergem and Jack Haas go for a spin of Johnny Hernandez, hitting Jack Haas's right door at the last minute there as he goes for another spin. Now taking us above. So again, Chase and Wilson are 4 wide with Nick Sant to their inside and Johnny Hernandez to the outside. But they, again, run each other out of room, sends both of them into the wall right in front of Brendan Beal. Johnny Hernandez going below the apron. And Jack Haas and, whoa, Matthew Hubert barely missing Jack Haas there. Holy crap. Wow, we got to go on board from, director, we got to go on board. Here we go. On board with Matthew Hubert. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Oh my God. What a miss. I mean, it's not the first time Hubert's done that. He missed the last wreck as well, barely. And he missed this one too. So what an incredible misses there from Matthew Hubert. Definitely keeping his hopes for a championship alive here today. But now speaking of championship, we're going on board with the 2023 champion and Brendan Beal. So when Madison and Wilson ran each other out of room and essentially forced Beal into the wall, besides that, pretty minimal damage for Brendan Beal. Of course, came this race started in the point standings and going off that win from Vermont. And finally on board of Johnny Hernandez. There was that contact when both Wilson and Chase came up on the racetrack, sent Johnny around, mostly saved it. And then here comes that last second contact with Jack Haas's right door. Caused additional damage to both Haas and Hernandez's car there. But anyways, we're already back under caution here at Progressive. As we're back for you guys for potentially our final ever restart here at the Super Speedway on this channel. Welcome back once again to Progressive Speedway here for the Palm Summer League semifinale. I feel like an absolute broken record saying this, but we're once again under caution for a wreck that happened off turn number 4 going into the front stretch. This time the main catalyst being Madison Chase and Ryan Wilson as they essentially ran each other out of room right in front of Brendan Beal and caused a huge chain reaction to unfold with several drivers being involved, including Jack Haas, Johnny Hernandez, among others. But anyways, eyes for your top 3 is not too much different from all previous restarts when we got even get one full lap in before the caution came back out. But Nathan Stapleton is your leader, with the only difference being 2nd and 3rd, with the only real difference being both Haley Anderson and Alex Mullen's positions being swapped, with Anderson now in 2nd and Mullen now down to 3rd. Now, I will say that if we do get another caution at any point during the remainder of this race, with the exception of the final lap, we will have to finish this race under green light checker finish conditions, which will mark the 3rd time this summer and the 2nd time during the last 2 races. But for now, we're back on the green here at Progressive with only 6 laps to go. Looks like to the line that time by Haley Anderson was scored as your leader, both up from Alex Bowen and continuing to turns 1 and 2. Staple is going to have the advantage over Anderson for the lead, with the 6 of Brad Ream also fast approaching in the inside coming off turn number 2. Now off turn number 2, here's Patrick Miller. Phil Torres moving down to the inside of the racetrack, potentially get a third line going. As I say that, Jordan Staff's also going to join those two down to the inside of the racetrack to potentially get the third line going once again into turns 3 and 4. But it looks like in the turns 3 and 4, looks like the top 6 are all going to move down to the racetrack, so far maintaining their respective positions. Looks like off before this time by thankfully. No wreck this time around as we come back to the finish line under green flag conditions with only 5 laps to go. As there's Alex Mullen for a strong run to the inside. But from Brad Ring coming to the line, I think Staple Barry beats Mullen back to the line that time by. But these two remain side by side for the lead through turns 1 and 2. With Alex Mullen had the advantage from Bradley Ream. Speaking of Alex's, Alex Sanvertoli is also closely following Bradley Ream into turn number 2. With Patrick Miller behind him as well in the 62. I know you see Roberto Crown try to switch lanes, trying to move down to the middle, but almost immediately went back up to the outside. We have now the 24 of Keyshawn Richardson right behind the 21. All aboard with Alex Sanvertoli this time by through turns 3 and 4 on the inside of the lane as he maintains the distance over Bradley Ream to help give Alex Mullen the lead over Staple. As it looks like this inside lane appears to be the lane to be in, especially in this late portion of this race. But as I say that, Alex Mullen's going to move up in front of Staple, moving Bradley and Sanvertoli down the lead 2 drivers on the inside lane, coming to 4 laps to go this time by. You saw that time by Owen Miles and Caleb Rose getting a strong run to turns 1 and 2 that time by, as your entire top 3 is going to move down to the inside in front of both those drivers, with Bradley Ream and Mullen still a side by side for the lead. Ream had the advantage over the 08 off for turn number 2 this time by. Here comes Roberto Crown again, this time all by himself to the inside of the track, nearly making him 4 wide that time by 4 Forbes, comes up to help the 21. It looks like other drivers may join both Crown and Forbes through turns 3 and 4, including the entire inside the line, with everyone moving down in front of the 21 and the 61. You know, in the midst of all of that, looks like in the turn number 4, Bradley Ream will clear Alex Mullen for the lead, with Sanvertoli so closely followed behind, with once again both Crown and Forbes ducking down to the inside, with Bibi Ruiz also joining them as well. Here comes Alex Sanvertoli now looking to the inside of Bradley Ream, coming back to the line with only 3 laps to go. And once again, the pack behind your top 6 are all 4 deep behind the leader, with Caleb Rose and Joe Tino making contact that time by. And you can see Crown continuing to force this issue off turn number 2, now down the back shuttle lane once again, trying to go as far down the racetrack as he possibly can without crossing the double yellow line, but still continue down this back stretch and into turns 3 and 4. Sanvertoli and Ream still remain side by side for the lead, with Alex Mullen on the outside trying to go 3 wide and trying to maintain this spot, but instead moves a lot of ground as we continue to these progressive corners. And as this pack continues to once again bunch back off turn number 4, Alex Sanvertoli will easily clear Bradley Ream for the lead and move up to the outside as well as Patrick Miller. Now, of course, Sanvertoli and many other drivers here today all came to this race basically in a must-win situation if they even want a chance at winning this championship, as there's Crown making 5 wide of the line of 2 laps to go, with Staple and Joe Tino making contact there. Oh my goodness, I am so shocked that they managed to all keep that straight. But for now, Sanvertoli's your leader, Miller second, Miles third, as here's Miles now off turn number 2, looking to the inside of Patrick Miller. And as all 3 of them move up to the outside lane in front of Bradley Ream, here's Bibi Ruiz in that furthermost inside lane, fast approaching into turns 3 and 4, with Crown moving down in front of Ruiz. And once again, all these drivers are 4 deep behind the leaders, all packed together, door to door, for the second to last time off turn number 4. But now coming down the front straightaway, Sanvertoli has a rather sizable gap over the next closest driver, that being Owen Miles, but that may not be the best idea for Sanvertoli if he wants to win this race. But regardless, we come to the white flag, only 1 lap to go here at Progressive. Regardless of what happens now, this race length is official. Sanvertoli back down to the inside, trying to block Owen Miles. And how's Miles looking to the inside of Sanvertoli off at 2? Owen Miles timed this move perfectly to the inside, to look to the inside of Sanvertoli before Crown looks to the inside of Miles. We're 3 wide for the lead down the back straightaway for the final time. Roberto Crown has been on the inside lane for pretty much the entire closing portion of this race. He's going to maintain that position once again. 3 wide still for the lead through turns 3 and 4, with Crown have the advantage over Miles. Here comes Bibi Ruiz to help out Crown. Looks like that's going to help out Crown to clear Owen Miles for the lead. But Ruiz have anything to say to Crown. Off of 4 and down the Showdown for the final time. Crown's going to move to the outside in front of Miles with Ruiz still to his inside, but it's not going to be enough. Roberto Crown in the drive of his life will see the checkered flag and win today Progressive. Oh my god, in just those last 6 laps, Roberto Crown made a statement to the entire world that he is not out of the championship battle quite yet, and that he and his team are willing to do just about whatever it takes for a chance to win this championship this summer. Just what an incredible run for Roberto and that team. We, of course, got to take a look at the replay to see that incredible finish, see how Crown managed to make his way up towards the front. Now, really, ever since the green flag dropped for that restart, Crown's been aggressively making his way up through the field, but this was a real big highlight here. Coming to 2 laps to go, look at Crown still maintaining the inside of the racetrack, almost right up against the yellow line, trying to go as far as he possibly can without crossing that yellow line. Look at him going 5 wide through turns 1 and 2, an absolutely risky move, especially from what we've seen in years past of super speedways. But still, regardless, Crown took that risk, made the 5 wide work somehow, some way. Of course, there's still 2 laps to go. Crown hasn't quite gotten that big run quite yet. But then into turns 3 and 4, this is where he gets that big run by once again maintaining the furthermost line on the inside of the line. And fell from Bibi Ruiz this time by he gets a strong run, do turns 3 and 4, gaining huge ground on Owen Miles, and with Alexander Vitali being so far out front compared to the rest of the other drivers in this pack. It played into Crown, it absolutely played into both Owen Miles and especially Roberto Crown's advantage coming to the white flag here. See Miles gain a huge run, do turns 1 and 2, a fell from Roberto Crown, and off turn number 2 as Miles looks to the inside, Crown closely follows him as well. But then down the back straightaway for the final time, this was the real money move for Crown as he forces Miles to the middle, making it 3 wide for the lead. And remember, and mind you, none of these drivers at this point had any sort of help. They just wanted to go for the win themselves. And then to turns 3 and 4, Crown gets that help from Bibi Ruiz on the inside. Whereas easier clears Stan Vitali and clears Owen Miles here. And at that point onwards, nobody was touching Roberto Crown. As he went down this front stretch for the final time, and eventually to the start-finish line to claim the checkered flag. And of course, this huge win for this team is going to mean some burnouts in front of the sold-out crowd here in Progressive. Of course, a big congratulations to Roberto Crown and RC Motorsports as they are your winners for the Marathon Oil Capital Showdown here in Tulsa. But anyways, let's take a look at the finishing results and point standings after today's eventful race. So here we go. Of course, Roberto Crown wins here today at Progressive. Again, I just can't stress enough not only how impressive of a run Roberto Crown had during those final 6 laps of this race, but also just how huge this win means to that team. This may not be a crown jewel race, but it may as well feel like one, because this is going to put him right back into this championship battle, as you'll see with the points coming up after these next few graphics. Meanwhile, Owen Miles in the 96 comes up just short, finishing second. He probably had the race-winning move, frankly, if it weren't for Roberto Crown Jr. If Crown either wasn't there or just even stayed loyal to Miles, he probably would have won this race, because Stan Vitali got so far ahead of him and the rest of the field that it was only a matter of if, or it's not even a matter of if, but a matter of when Owen Miles was going to get that huge run on Stan Vitali. But of course, Roberto Crown had motivations of his own to win this race, and thus left Miles out to dry. And Crown got the win himself, while Miles had to settle for second place finish. But still a good finish result for Miles, who's had a rather disappointing Palm Summer League return to the Palm Summer League here this summer. Finishing third is Bibi Ruiz. This is definitely going to help him out in the point standings, as he came in this race 8th today in the standings, and of course with other big name drivers like Matthew Hill and Random J getting involved in this today is definitely going to be a huge point day also for Bibi Ruiz in regards to the championship standings. Meanwhile, Alexander Vitali, of course, led coming to the white flag, will have to settle with 4th place. And like I said, if it weren't for Stan Vitali getting so far out ahead of that pack coming to the white flag, he very well may have had a shot to win this. But Stan Vitali made the mistake that you definitely should not make during a closing laps of the Super Speedway by getting so far out ahead of the rest of the field, and unfortunately, Stan Vitali ended up paying that price despite getting a good top 5 finish overall here today. Speaking of top 5, Patrick Miller is going to round off the rest of the top 5 as only Ford to finish inside the top 10. while the Railfan teammates of Caleb Rose and Bradley Ream make up 6th and 7th respectively, while Jordan Forbes will finish 8th. Another driver also got a much-needed finish here today, as of course before this, Forbes was coming off a rather mediocre Firecracker 400 performance, as well as a disappointing finish on the last race at Vermont, after being up front for pretty much the entirety of that race until that last caution. Behind him is Matthew Hubert, may not be a top 3 finish this time around, but 9th is still very much a good finish for that 98 team, especially in regards to the fact that Hubert not only missed 1 crash, but missed 2 crashes in an absolutely insane way. I still can't believe how he missed that second wreck especially. I mean, just insane drive for Matthew Hubert and NS Racing, especially over the course of these last 3 races. And finally, the rest of the top 10 is only Pontiac in this top 10 is Jordan Stout in the 11 car. So 11th through 20th, there you see Joe T once again with another top 15 finish. Haley Anderson is going to finish 12th after he was also up front for much of this race. Nick Sant in 13th. Definitely thought he'd be a driver potentially in contention to win this race with his past success at super speedways, but still a good, decent enough finish to make him at least mathematically eligible going into the grand finale. Meanwhile, on 15th is Nathan Stapleton, who led the most laps of the day of 10 laps, mainly because of the back-to-back cautions we had. So Staple pretty much got that extra bonus point by default, but still a bonus point is a bonus point. Even though Staple will finish within the top 15, it was definitely not the result that team had, as Staple looked pretty mad fast, especially before the back-to-back caution we had in this race. A little bit further down the running order, you see Brian Rodriguez in the 18 car finishing 17th for today. And even though 17th isn't really a flashy finish whatsoever, in fact, I barely even talked about Rodriguez throughout the entire race. But despite that, this is going to be a huge point day for Rodriguez and that 18 team, as first, second, and third in points of Matthew Hill, Random J, and Beal were involved in at least one incident here today. Rodriguez, on the other hand, kept his car clean the entire way, so this is going to be definitely a huge point there for Rodriguez, who came to this race, of course, 4th in points, but of course with Hill, Random, and Beal, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in points. Like I said, all being involved in at least one accident here today. This is going to leapfrog Brian Rodriguez and give him a great chance to clinch the championship at the grand finale in Atlanta in just a few weeks. And finally, to round off the rest of the top 20 is the old of Alex Bone. It looked like he had a car capable of contending for the win, but once he got forced up to the outside, so the closing laps of this race, it was pretty much all but over for Alex Bone and his chances to win here today. So 21st through 30th, there you see both Riley Spurly and Daniel Voiles, 2 drivers that are involved in our first caution on lap number 6. But because both drivers got minimal, if any, damage to their cars, they still managed to finish with the rest of the pack. Same goes for Al Bunch, as he was involved in our second caution today. Alexander Rose, another driver who was also involved in our first caution as well. And Lipsy, also just like Bunch, got damaged during our second caution, but managed to finish with the rest of the field. Meanwhile, Brendan Beal alongside Madison Chase were both involved in our last caution today. And even though Beal didn't get that much damage, it still was enough to slow him down and not really have a chance to even contend for the win, or even a top 15 or top 20 position, as Beal is going to finish a very disappointing 29th place here today. And finally, as for 31st to 40th, the 2 big names that easily sticks out in this graphic is Matthew Hill and Random J. In the case of Random, he was involved in our first 2 cautions today. He managed to escape the first caution pretty much unscathed. It was actually up front after that first restart, but when that second wreck happened, both Hill and Random weren't so lucky. And in the case of Random, the damage was pretty apparent cosmetically as his hood was buckled up. But Matthew Hill, even though it didn't appear to his car that got that much damage at all, it was enough to slow him down from the rest of the field and finish below the top 30. So definitely disappointing results for 2 drivers that had everything on the line going into today's race. And finally, to close off the running order is once again the 75 of Jack Haas. As for the second race in a row, he will finish 40th and last here today. But thankfully, unlike last time at Vermont, Jack Haas will actually manage to finish this race in DNF. In fact, this is actually the first ever Palm Summer race to not have any drivers DNF, despite us having 3 cautions, which is the most we've had in the Palm Summer race since our second race earlier December at Training Motegi. So pretty impressive, despite us having 3 cautions, no drivers managed to DNF and finish the entire race on the lead lap, mind you, as well. And now for the point standings going into not only our final ever Palm Summer League race, but also likely the final ever channel race. And like I said already multiple times, because of the drivers that went into today's race in points, first in points Hill, second in points Random, and third in points Beal, all getting involved in at least one accident here today. 4th in points, Brian Rodriguez did not, and because of that, he will survive by taking back the point lead of 188 points, while the new driver who's in second in points, Matthew Hubert, trails by 4 points. So because Brian Rodriguez and Hubert did a great job of avoiding these wrecks. They will be rewarded as they are now the two front runners for this Palm Summer League Championship. Despite losing the point lead, Matthew Hill isn't too far down behind by 5 points. No, by the way, Hill has won an 1.5 mile day to night track before in the past, so Hill's still very much in this. In fact, him and Bibi Ruiz are actually tied in basically every metric in regards to the point standings. Both have a win, both have 2 top 5s, both have 3 top 10s, both have led 4 laps so far this summer, and both don't have any dual points. So they're literally practically tied. But I will say, if these two are somehow still tied by the end of this championship battle for the championship, it will be decided on who had the highest finish in the race. So if the championship were to end now, Ruiz would have the advantage over Hill because he had the higher finish over Hill for today's race. But if this were the final race, if they're tied in every metric, if they're tied in every single metric, the driver who finishes highest in that race will have the advantage over the other. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that's going to be important if this scenario does persist going into our final race in Atlanta. Brendan Beal is going to fall down to 5th in points, now behind by 9. Roberto Crown, after his huge win here today, is behind by 11, where Random J takes a massive stumble down in the points, all the way down to 7th behind by 12. So Random, in his final ever NR race, definitely needs a few miracles to happen if he wants to win his long coveted championship in NR. Joe T continues to hold his ground inside the top 10 in points, now up to 8th, behind by 15. Jordan Forbes moves up a spot, now in 9th, behind by 17. While Alex Sanfitoli actually moves inside the top 10 in points, behind by 18. So despite losing out in today's race, that was still a big point save for Sanfitoli, as he's now within fighting range for this Palm Summer League Championship. But not pictured on this graphic, but the drivers 11th through 22nd in the standings still all have a mathematical shot of winning this championship, as they're within a race of points in front of the point leader. But of course, the further you go down in points, the less and less likelihood of them actually winning this championship. Starting with Riley Spurly, he's only 19 back, so he's almost in a similar spot to both Forbes and Sanfitoli. But once you go down to drivers like Colin Cropley, who's 42 back from the leader, Owen Miles 46 back from the leader, Jordan Stout 47 back from the leader, and Anthony Hernandez 48 points from the leader, they're all pretty much in must-win situations if they want even the chance to win this championship, as of course 48 points is the max you can score in a given Palm Summer League race. And of course, in addition, if those drivers really far back, if they want to win this championship, they got to have pretty much everyone in front of them in points all crash out or have some sort of mechanical issue or a terrible run. Just a lot of things need to happen right for those drivers way down in the point standings, still within a mathematical shot of winning the championship, to even have a chance to win the championship. So next up is the race that has been probably in the back of everybody's minds for nearly the last year or so. This is not only going to mark the final NR points race on this channel, but potentially the final NR race ever on this channel. That, of course, coming from the Atlanta Motor Speedway for the running of the Atlanta Grand Finale for this long 82 lap race along this 1.5 mile day to night transition track. This will happen, of course, barring any delays, hopefully on Labor Day, September 1st at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is definitely going to be an emotional race for me and probably a lot of other people watching and racing. So this is one you certainly do not want to miss, for sure. But as always, y'all, thank you guys for watching this race. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys for the grand finale.